"O my creator, the sands are swallowing me. Save me, my little donkey, I beg you. We must defeat them all. We cannot leave a single one standing." This was the cry of Zola, the youngest of four brothers, as he struggled against the shifting dunes. But his journey had begun much earlier that day. After outsmarting a massive Zimu, an ogre giant, and binding him tightly with vines and ropes, Zola realized his small donkey could not pull such a colossal weight back to the village. Leaving the giant tied to a lonely palm tree at the desert's edge, Zola raced home. He burst into his father's compound and pleaded with his three older brothers. "Quickly, bring the horses. I have captured the one who threatened us, the mate of the giantess we defeated before. We must pull him to the village to face justice." The brothers, though skeptical, mounted their swift horses while Zola rode his faithful donkey. They galloped into the red haze of the desert, but when they reached the palm tree, their hearts sank. The ropes lay in the dust, frayed and empty. The giant was gone. The older brothers looked at Zola with mockery and confusion. "It seems your mind has played tricks on you, little brother," they scoffed. "Fear has made you see shadows and call them monsters. You have wasted our time in this cursed heat." Zola pointed at the deep ruts in the sand. "I bound him with my own hands. He was here." "Enough," they replied, turning their horses. "We are going back. Come with us before the sun steals the rest of your senses." But Zola refused. He stayed behind, staring at the empty ropes, wondering how a beast so tightly bound could simply vanish. What Zola did not know was that while he was seeking help, the giant's daughter had been tracking her father. She had found him bound and tried to tear the ropes, but Zola's knots were too clever. She was not alone. She rode a massive, battle-scarred hyena, a beast her father had given her as a pup, which she had raised to be as loyal as a hound. Realizing she could not free him alone, she pushed her hyena into a gallop, racing toward the Valley of the Giants to find her kin. Two of their strongest relatives returned with her, driving a heavy wooden cart pulled by two massive, bad-tempered wild buffalo. They hoisted the bound giant onto the cart and vanished into the rocky highlands. When the high chief of the giants saw one of his kind bound by a human boy, his roar shook the canyon walls. "How can a small human humiliate us so?" he bellowed. "I swear a great vow, I will find this Zola. I will make his village a ruin and his life a warning to all who dare cross our path." Zola, unaware of this gathering storm, finally decided to investigate the giant's cave. Finding it empty and cold, he began the long ride home, doubting his own memory. But as he approached the outskirts of his village, he froze. In the soft earth near the watering hole were massive footprints, not one pair, but a whole legion, all pointing toward his home. Panic seized him. He lashed his donkey into a run. He arrived to see smoke rising and homes shattered. His brothers stood outside their family house, their heads bowed in deep sorrow. Zola rushed inside, calling for his father, but the old man's chair was empty. "Where is our father?" Zola demanded, his voice trembling. "The giants," the eldest brother whispered. "They came shortly after we returned. They tore through the village looking for you. When they could not find the boy who bound their kin, they took our father as a prize of war." "And you let them," Zola cried, "you with your horses and your spears." "There were too many, Zola, and let us be honest, this happened because of your cleverness in the desert. You brought this upon us." Zola wiped his eyes and stood tall. "Blame will not bring him back. We go now to rescue him." They followed the trail of heavy footprints until the sand turned to stone at the mouth of a deep, mountain-locked valley. The brothers climbed a high ridge and looked down. There, in the center of the giant's camp, was their father, locked in a massive ironwood cage. "We must strike now," the brothers shouted, their blood boiling with anger. "Wait," Zola cautioned. "We are four, they are many. We need a plan, or we will only be adding more prisoners to their cages." But the brothers would not listen. They believed their horses and their strength were enough. They charged down the slope, leaving Zola behind. Because his donkey was slower than their horses, Zola was still on the ridge when the giants sprung their trap. Great nets, hidden beneath the brush, flew up and entangled the brothers instantly. In a matter of moments, Zola watched as his entire family was dragged away into the shadows of the valley. He was alone, with nothing but his small donkey and his mind to face an army of giants. Zola stood alone on the ridge, his heart heavy with a grief that felt like lead. He had lost his father and now all three of his brothers. "I cannot return to the village empty-handed," he whispered. "I must find a way." He crawled through the scrub and rocks until he spotted a narrow, forgotten trail winding into the back of the valley. It looked ancient and abandoned, choked with heavy sands. Zola mounted his donkey and began the descent, unaware that a silent killer waited in the dust. Suddenly, the donkey planted its hooves and froze. No matter how much Zola nudged him, the animal refused to move. Then, with a sudden leap, the donkey bucked, throwing Zola to the ground. "What is this, my friend?" Zola cried in frustration. "Are you abandoning me in this desolate place?" Deciding to go on foot, Zola took only 3 steps before the ground turned to liquid. His feet vanished into the earth. It was quicksand, the hungry sand that swallows the unwary. As he began to sink to his waist, Zola realized his donkey hadn't been stubborn, he had been trying to save him. "Help me," Zola shouted, reaching out a hand. The faithful donkey edged forward cautiously, just far enough for Zola to grab the rope hanging from its neck. With a mighty heave, the donkey pulled backward, dragging Zola from the earth's throat. Zola lay on the safe ground, gasping, and embraced his companion. "Forgive me, loyal friend, you saw what I did not." Using stones to test the ground ahead, Zola successfully navigated the secret path. He crept to the edge of the giant's camp and saw his family in the ironwood cage. 2 massive giants stood guard, but they were snoring loudly. Zola moved to unlock the cage, but a twig snapped. One giant bolted upright, his yellow eyes fixing on the boy. Zola turned and fled back toward the secret path. The 2 giants roared, waking the camp, and charged after him. Zola leaped onto his donkey and raced across the testing ground he had marked. Behind him, the heavy giants, blind with rage, stepped directly into the quicksand. They bellowed as they sank, disappearing forever into the belly of the earth. Zola realized he still needed more strength to free the rest of his family. He raced back to the village and stood before the elders. "Help me," he pleaded. "The giants are distracted. We can save them now." But the villagers shook their heads. "It is impossible, Zola. Life is too precious to throw away on a suicide mission. Your family is lost." Rejected and alone, Zola rode out into the high savanna. There he encountered a sight that made the air vibrate, a massive herd of wild buffalo, thousands strong. He watched them from a distance, identifying the great king, a bull with horns like sweeping scythes. Near a muddy watering hole, Zola saw a group of buffalo distressed. A young calf was trapped in the deep mire. Without hesitation, Zola climbed down, waded into the mud, and used his strength to heave the calf onto solid ground. The great king of the herd watched with steady, intelligent eyes. When Zola approached, the massive bull did not charge. He stood still, as if offering his back in a silent pact of gratitude. Zola climbed onto the buffalo's broad back. He knew the giants often hunted these herds to pull their heavy stone carts, and the buffalo carried a deep, ancestral hatred for the monsters. With a single cry, Zola directed the bull toward the valley. The entire herd followed, a sea of black horns and thundering hooves. As they reached the valley, the giants looked up to see the very ground shaking. Before they could grab their clubs, the buffalo stampeded. Giants were tossed like dry grass. Those who tried to flee toward the back trail fell into the quicksand. To Zola's surprise, the villagers appeared at the valley's entrance, moved by shame and inspired by Zola's courage. They helped bind the fallen giants while Zola raced to the cage. He broke the locks and his father stepped out, embracing him. "I knew your mind was sharper than any spear, my son," the old man said. His brothers bowed their heads. "We have learned today, Zola, that wisdom and planning are worth far more than courage without thought." Zola saw his donkey approaching and kissed his velvet nose. "I have never known a more loyal friend," he whispered. The village returned in a grand procession. The brothers rode their horses, the father rode a fine mount, and Zola rode his faithful donkey. Behind them, The villagers led the captured giants in chains to ensure they would never threaten the peace again. And so, through the strength of his mind and the bonds he built with the creatures of the earth, Zola became a legend, the boy who turned a herd into an army and a donkey into a hero.